Hi, everyone. I'm Dave Bovin, and I serve as the Dean of the School of Business and Technology at Chipola College. We'd like to welcome you to our weekly tech topic. And today we have Ben Bridges serving as our co-host.
Glad to be here.
It's exciting that we get to look at some technologies. This week we're going to look at 3D printing and some ideas for printing at home.
Absolutely. So to get started, I would like to cover a few things today. First of all, choosing and purchasing a 3D printer. There are a ton of different styles and models and brands out there that you can choose from. I would like to mainly focus on the differences in design and build of 3D printers. There are a few important ones to cover. And then we will go over choosing the correct filament, choosing the correct nozzle. I'll show them as we go through, and outfitting your printer with interesting upgrades as well, like such as an Octoprint or even a second hot end.
So when you think of 3D printing, Ben, it has a great history. I think it began with David Jones in 1974, had a publication in a peer-reviewed journal about the idea of 3D printing, and it's had some wonderful progression since then and wonderful updates that we'll talk about, especially with your nozzles that you have as examples, and the PLA as well.
Right.
Something that caught my interest recently is in 2014, Georgia Tech actually is working on getting a patent for printing electronics and be able to use those components in everyday devices. So 3D printing is progressing at a fast pace, and something that we bring some excitement within our classes and within our school. So
Absolutely. And interesting to be on that topic, we actually have a filament in the business office that is a conductive filament. It is one that you can actually design circuits with and print 3D circuits in that aspect. So to get started on choosing a 3D printer, there are three main types that I would like to cover. And they are in two groups. The first group is called FDM. It's essentially like, it's what we print with. It's hot plastic, comes from the hot end and out of the nozzle like this, and it essentially prints from ground up as if you were laying bricks down, like building a house.
looks like that nozzle's been used a bunch there, Ben.
Absolutely, and I have a funny story to talk about that in a little bit. And then the second group is called SLA. And SLA is essentially, it's like a tray that has this resin. It's almost like a goo, and it shines light on the bottom, and it pulls the print upwards as it prints it. And in that aspect, it prints from top down in that sense, because it's almost upside down the way it prints.
And to reinforce the initial vision of David Jones back in 1974, the thought of additive manufacturing, we're actually adding to and creating based on the computer model. So different than traditional manufacturing, where you create the object and you take away,
Right,
and
and
subtract. So it's a wonderful concept that you can do at home.
absolutely. And additive manufacturing is actually way more efficient. Excuse me, allergies are rough today. But it's way more efficient in the sense that you are reducing waste.
Well said.
And reducing waste means you have more product that you can work with, and you also have less to clean up.
And for a small business and entrepreneurs, say, you can manage costs better, keep your overhead low, and try to earn a greater revenue with any business focus that you have.
Absolutely. And to start with, we'll talk about FDM printers. There are actually two subgroups in that, which is the main two that I would recommend for people who are entering the 3D printing hobby. I'll cover SLA, which is a little bit more advanced later on in the video. But first we will talk about Cartesian and Delta printers. A Cartesian printer is essentially what we run here at Chipola. It is like a XYZ printer, essentially. So it runs on the X-axis, the Y-axis, and the Z-axis in terms of the servos and the motors. So if the printer would move in a sense like, in very precise movements, specifically by using the XYZ axis.
And tied to how it's modeled for the
Right.
print, yes.
Yes. And a Delta printer is a little different. With Cartesian prints, they print on a square base, and Delta prints print on a circular base. So I'll use this, this filament roll as a example. This would be what a Delta printer's base would look like. So instead of using X, Y, and Z like a Cartesian, it actually only has 3 arms, and each arm is essentially assigned to an axis, except they are laid out more like a triangle. And using precise math, a lot of trigonometry and things like that in its programming, it can actually pinpoint the same positions, and they usually print taller than a Cartesian.
And it's exciting. You brought some nozzle head examples, and you
Yes.
have that quick story to share that looks like that was well-used nozzle there, Ben.
Yes, it was. Talking about nozzles, nozzles are very important whenever you are entering 3D printing, especially whenever you are wanting to figure out the general workflow of how your prints are printed and their quality. Now, usually nozzles are laid out from the tenths and millimeters of the size in which they print out. For example, this is a 0.6 millimeter, and that means that the small hole that the prints come out as 0.6 millimeters in diameter. And it can vary from up to 0.8 down to 0.1. And the smaller the size, the longer the print, but the better the accuracy and the more capability of printing smaller, more very delicate things.
Which we have tried a few.
Right.
I mean, we have a couple examples we'll get to in a second, but yeah.
Yes. And one more important thing about choosing your nozzle is choosing the material. Material science is very important with 3D printing. You want to make sure that you are printing with materials that are durable enough to handle the materials that are going through the hot end. And it's actually a funny story with this little heat block that I have. I was printing with a form of NinjaFlex, which is a flexible filament. It prints a little hotter than things like PLA. But what happened was I printed at a too hot of a temperature, and my nozzle got clogged because with more flexible filaments, you need to have a nozzle width that's larger than the polymers that they're made out of. That's probably a better look at it. And so needless to say, it got clogged, and then I had to cool it down to try to clear it out, and I ended up fusing all of these pieces. This is actually 3 pieces. There is the nozzle, the heat block, and the tube in which filament goes through. And all of those fused where the threading is right here, and ended up ruining it. And all of this together is probably about $40 or $50 in manufactured products. So it's very recommendable to not ruin them with just not understanding the how meticulous it can be.
So something we've learned that even though that looks like it got really hot,
Right.
is 3D printing is safe, and it's something you can do at home, and
Absolutely.
you can create a small business or a new venture. We've also learned in the School of Business Technology that you can make scrambled eggs, excuse me, very easily, meaning your PLA can go awry.
Yep.
If you step away, you think the modeling is all set and it'll take care of itself, but even though everything seems to be in place, you still have Murphy's Law,
Right.
kind of hanging over your head, that you should observe it, make sure something wouldn't get too hot, make sure there wouldn't be a fire hazard.
Absolutely.
So we have learned that. And some cool things we've printed. I mean, most recently we printed this Bitcoin.
We like to print those.
Yeah, and too bad it's not worth a real Bitcoin, but it's something neat to bring into our tech classes. And speaking of technology, boy, we talk about technology all the time because that's our passion. But what's cool about our School of Business and Technology and the programs that we have is technology really serves as a foundation in all our courses.
Absolutely.
Now, whether it's accounting or business or management, engineering, the technology is just a key component. And it's cool that we can help share that with others and they can continue to bring that into the workplace. So that's powerful. But this thought of just bringing in a Bitcoin and showing how alternative investing and how that may expand in years to come is fun. That project
Absolutely.
we're working on, we found that entrepreneur who's looking at making a boat bumper possibly.
Right.
And we had this strong composite, this PLA that you were talking about earlier, that keeps its shape, can hold a lot of weight,
Right.
but it may not be UVA friendly. So we're looking at changing the PLA and bringing
Yes.
that entrepreneur back in and seeing what we can do for a bumper for a boat. So all kinds of cool things we're working on.
Absolutely. And the material science of that is absolutely fascinating, in my opinion. For example, this cube that we printed, it's extremely tough and extremely elastic. You could run this over probably with a semi truck and it would not break.
Yeah, we've stood on that. We've challenged people to try to
Yes.
collapse it, and it keeps its weight. We haven't driven a truck over it yet, but we probably should just to see how durable it is. But it looks like it could withstand any pressure, just the sun over time. So
Right.
we're looking at a lighter PLA that's more
Yes.
sun friendly.
And we think that white, since it is a more reflective color, it reflects all spectrums of light. We think that it would be more resistant to UV light.
So any other parting thoughts? You brought a new pie with us?
Yes.
It's not a peanut butter pie, which is my favorite, but
Yes, it's one more thing I'd like to talk about with entering the hobby of 3D printing is you will eventually look into creating modifications. Now, modifications can vary from creating more structures that can improve the stability of your printer. You can have extra heat cores. You can print with 2 at a time and have different color filaments on the same print, making very interesting variegated prints, two-tones and things like that. But another one that I highly recommend and I have used almost the entire time that I have been printing as a hobby is using a Raspberry Pi. This is a small computer. We covered it in a few videos before, and its power as a small computer, and it has the ability to run as a microcontroller for the printer itself. Usually the printer runs its own microcontroller, but usually they are pretty simple and do not really do as much as a computer that is dedicated to it would. Now, it looks like this from the inside, just kind of like a little circuit board, and it
a
has
mini computer in a sense.
Yes, absolutely. And it has, the ports here, and it has display ports and a charging port over here. But you can use this as a form of controlling your printer, and you get very interesting metrics. You can have a graph that shows your temperature at the time. You can set up time lapses. There's a lot of features that you can upgrade your printer with just by having this computer control it. And in my opinion, the most important thing about it is the camera functionality, in the sense that a lot of people are nervous about their printer and they like to sit by it whenever it prints.
To avoid the scrambled eggs.
Yes.
Right? Yeah, the
To-
PLA going awry.
Right, to avoid any errors and such. But this, since it has a camera function, you can be around your house, or you can even go out and have a live feed of your printer as it prints and have the ability to quickly turn it off or terminate the print.
Yeah, so for us, we created an Instagram page
We did,
for our actual 3D printer.
yes. And if you would like to follow us, it is at Chipola 3D Printer on Instagram.
And there was a period of time that our 3D printer's Instagram page had more followers than the college's Instagram page, but
That is correct.
that's still
Yes.
good, builds momentum.
Right,
And with this, we've actually had some web-based modeling that we could bring in as well to print from.
absolutely.
It's been a good
yes.
resource. Well, feel free to reach out to us. We hopefully can see you in some upcoming classes or some project on campus. Just let us know if we can help with anything, and hope you have a great day.
Thank you.